Tomorrow morning, an alarm is going to go off in the dark. You're going to get up before your body wants to, travel to a place you did not choose, and spend the best hours of daylight you get doing something for someone else. Then you'll come home, sleep, and do it again, and the day after that. For about 40 years, it feels like gravity, like water to a fish. This is just what it means to be a person. You work, you earn, you survive. Every adult you have ever known has done some version of it, but almost no human being who ever lived would recognize what you're about to do tomorrow. The job, clocking in, a wage, a boss, the same desk 5 days a week, is not ancient. It is not natural. It is barely 200 years old, which means that for more than 99% of human history, nobody had one. And the story of where it came from is stranger and far more deliberate than you've ever been told. By the end of this, you're going to look at your own Monday differently. Because the job quietly took 3 things from you, one after another. And the third one is the part that explains the ache almost everyone feels on a Sunday night and almost nobody can name. There's also something hiding inside the word job itself, a clue we'll come back to, that you are going to read very differently in about 10 minutes than you do right now. So start at the beginning, before any of it existed. For roughly 300,000 years your ancestors were hunter-gatherers, and we now have a fairly precise idea of how hard they actually worked. In the 1960s, an anthropologist named Richard Lee lived with the Juhounsi people of the Kalahari and counted their hours down to the minute. The number came out to about 15 hours a week. Not 15 hours of suffering, 15 hours of feeding everyone. The rest of the time was rest, talk, visiting, making things, doing nothing at all. Another anthropologist, Marshall Salins, looked at evidence like this and gave early humans a name nobody believes the first time they hear it. He called them the original affluent society, not because they had wealth. They had almost nothing. He meant they had time. Sit with that for a second. The deepest, oldest version of a human being, the one your body is still quietly built to be, was effectively done with work before lunch. But here's the strange part. We did not get freer as we got more advanced. We got less free, and the very first thing that took your time away is the thing we usually call progress. Around 12,000 years ago, humans invented farming. We tell that story as the moment civilization began. But a scientist named Jared Diamond once called agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race. And the bones agree with him. When you dig up the skeletons of the first farmers and compare them to the foragers who came before, the farmers are shorter. Their teeth are worse. Their bodies carry more disease, more strain, more years of grinding labor. Farming did not free us from work. It buried us in it. For the first time, you could own land, store grain, and fall behind. For the first time, there was always more that needed to be done. The 15-hour week was over, and it was never coming back. That was the first thing the job took. Your time. But even the farmer still had something you have lost. He worked his own land, by the sun, at his own pace. And he could see with his own eyes exactly what his effort was for. That's the second thing the job came for. And this time, someone took it on purpose. Walk into the early factories of the Industrial Revolution. A historian named E.P. Thompson wrote the definitive account of what happened there in 1967, and it comes down to a single object: the clock. Before the factory, work was task-oriented. You did the task, and when the task was finished, you were finished. Time was loose. People worked in bursts and rested when they could, and so many of them took Mondays off to recover from the weekend that they had a name for it. They called it Saint Monday. The factory could not allow any of that. A machine runs on a schedule, and the people feeding it had to run on one too. So the factory hung a clock on the wall and rang a bell, and it invented something no human had ever experienced before. The idea that your time itself, not your work, your time, now belonged to someone else. You were no longer paid to finish a thing. You were paid to simply be there, to hand over your hours, whether the work needed doing or not, and almost everything you think of as just how a job works was built in the blink that followed. The 2-day weekend is a 20th century invention. The 8-hour day, the 5-day week, the 40-hour limit. Henry Ford put his workers on a 5-day week in 1926, and the United States did not write 40 hours into law until 1938. Your great-grandparents were alive for that. The schedule that feels older than the sky was signed into existence about 4 generations ago, which brings us to the part of the deal that nobody ever stops to examine. The reward at the end. The promise that if you give the machine your healthiest decades, you'll get them back at the finish line. We call it retirement, and it has an inventor too. In the 1880s, the German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck built the first state pension, and he set the age you could collect it at 70. It sounds generous, until you learn what life expectancy was at the time. Most workers were never expected to reach 70 at all. The rest you were promised at the end of your life was, by design, a rest that most people would die before they ever got to take. And for some, the job does not even wait until the end. There is a country that had to invent a word for this. In Japan, it's karoshi, death by overwork. It is not a figure of speech, it is a legal category, with government investigators and compensation paid out to families because enough people have logged 100 or more hours of overtime in a single month, and then simply died. A heart attack, a stroke, a body that finally stopped, that the state had to build an official box to file them in. Think about what that actually means. A society became so good at the job that it had to create paperwork for the people it was killing, so it would be easy to land here and say the obvious thing. Work is the prison. The job is the enemy. Modern life is a trap. But that is not quite right, and the real answer is the part that matters most, because humans have always worked. Your ancestors hunted, tracked, carried, and built, and they were not hollow while they did it. There's a reason that a person with no role to fill, and no one depending on them, tends to quietly come apart. So the thing draining people is not the effort. It's that the job took work, and split it away from everything that ever made work feel like being alive. An anthropologist named David Graeber found that when you simply ask people directly, around 4 in 10 will tell you their own job makes no real difference to the world, that they could vanish tomorrow and nothing would change. That is the third thing the job took, the one almost nobody can name. Your labor used to be tangled up with your people, with results you could see with your own time and your own land. The job pulled all of it apart. It took your hours away from your family and handed them to a building. It took the thing you make and hid it behind a wall where you will never meet who it's for. It took your own rhythm and replaced it with a bell. The job did not add work to human life. It subtracted the meaning and kept the work. Now go back to that word we left sitting at the beginning. Job. For most of its life, the word meant almost the opposite of what it means to you. It meant a lump, a single discrete piece of work, a job, something you picked up, finished, and put back down. A job was a thing you completed. And somewhere in the last 200 years, we took a word that meant a task you walk away from and turned it into a thing that never ends, a thing that defines you. The first question a stranger asks you at a party. We took a piece of work you finish and made it the center of an entire human life. So tomorrow, when the alarm goes off in the dark, you'll know what you're really waking up into. Not the natural order, not the way it has always been, a machine that a handful of generations switched on, assembled out of a farmer's trap, a factory's clock, and a chancellor's arithmetic, and now running on the hours of an animal that was built to work 15 of them a week and spend the rest of its time simply alive. You probably can't walk away from it. Most people can't. The paycheck is real, and the bills do not care that they're recent inventions. But the ache you feel on Sunday night was never a personal failing, and it was never proof that something is wrong with you. It is the oldest part of you noticing the gap between the life it was built for and the one it was handed. The job feels like the water you were born to swim in. It isn't. It's a machine somebody switched on about 8 generations ago. And the strangest part is that we forgot it was ever switched on at all, that there was a before, that it was built, that somewhere there was always supposed to be a hand resting on the switch. The only question left is the same one it has always been. Whose hand is it? And could it ever be yours? If the Sunday night ache finally made sense today, then subscribe. This channel does exactly this every week, and send it to the one person you know who feels it too. They've probably never had the words for it either.